You're listening to the Immortal Icons of Dance podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Johnson. In this season of the podcast, we're honoring two groundbreaking musicals that changed the course of Broadway history, A Chorus Line and Chicago. Both are celebrating their 50th anniversaries this summer. In this special season, we sit down with original cast members from each show to hear their memories from rehearsals and performances, the influence of their legendary mentors Michael Bennett and Bob Fosse, and how they carry those lessons forward in their work today. These are first-hand stories from the artists who lived it and danced it 8 times a week. All month long, I'll be sharing historical content about both shows. Be sure to follow @Immortal Icons of Dance to see vintage photos, behind-the-scenes footage, and excerpts from past interviews. For the full experience, you can visit the Vault on our website, immortaliconsofdance.com/vault. I hope you enjoy this season of interviews and join me in celebrating the legacy of these truly immortal icons of dance. Oh, before we dive in, I wanted to give you a quick heads up. In these interviews, we're often using shorthand, Broadway or dance insider language. You'll hear us use first names without last names, or maybe mention a song by its nickname instead of its full title. These episodes definitely aren't a beginner's guide or Broadway 101. It's a conversation between dancers for dancers. So if some of the references fly by, that's okay. It's part of the beauty of these conversations. Dancers being able to open up to another dancer without having to over-explain themselves. I hope you still enjoy the spirit of the conversation as much as I did. In today's episode, I'll be talking to Baayork Lee about her incredible career and her involvement in A Chorus Line over the last 50 years. Baayork was born in New York City in Chinatown in 1946. She began performing on Broadway at the age of 5 in The King and I alongside Yul Brynner. A graduate of New York's High School of Performing Arts, Baayork went on to perform in the original Broadway productions of Flower Drum Song, Golden Boy, Promises, Promises, Seesaw, and of course, A Chorus Line, where she originated the role of Connie Wong, a character based on her own life. Baayork was a close collaborator of Michael Bennett's, with whom she shared a long creative partnership. She served as his assistant choreographer on productions including Seesaw, A Chorus Line, and Ballroom, and later associate choreographer on Dreamgirls. Following Michael's death, Baayork became one of the primary guardians of his legacy and has directed and choreographed numerous international and national productions of A Chorus Line. She is also directing the official 50th anniversary celebration that takes place at the end of this month at the Schubert Theater, where A Chorus Line originally ran from 1975 to 1990. Baayork also co-founded the National Asian Artist Project, which supports Asian American talent in the performing arts and has produced full-length musicals featuring all Asian casts. In recognition of her work, Baayork has received the Isabel Stevenson Tony Award, the Paul Robeson Award from Actors Equity, and the Asian American Arts Alliance Lifetime Achievement Award. She continues to mentor dancers and directors, both through National Asian Artist Project and through her extensive work staging productions worldwide. Her influence extends across generations, and her impact on representation, inclusion, and excellence in the American theater remains unmatched. My conversation with her today will have a strong focus on her working relationship with Michael Bennett. Michael Bennett, born in 1943 in Buffalo, New York, is one of the most influential director-choreographers in American musical theater. He began his Broadway career in a tour of West Side Story, but quickly transitioned to choreography. By his mid-20s, he had choreographed the hit musical Promises, Promises in 1968, marking the beginning of a series of high-profile collaborations with composer Burt Bacharach and director Neil Simon. He went on to choreograph Coco in 1969 and choreograph and direct Company in 1970 and Follies in 71 and Seesaw in 73, establishing himself as a visionary artist who could combine innovative movement with character-driven storytelling. Michael's landmark achievement came in 1975 with A Chorus Line, a groundbreaking musical developed through recording workshop sessions with real Broadway dancers, including Baayork. He conceived, directed, and co-choreographed the show, which revolutionized musical theater by centering the ensemble rather than the star, and by portraying dancers' personal lives with emotional depth and authenticity. The show ran for 6,137 performances on Broadway, won 9 Tony Awards, and earned Michael a Pulitzer Prize for drama. After A Chorus Line, Michael directed or choreographed several major productions, including Ballroom in 1978 and Dreamgirls in 1981. But Michael's career was tragically cut short when he died of AIDS-related lymphoma in 1987 at the age of 44. Nonetheless, his legacy endures through his groundbreaking work, his mentorship of artists like Baayork, and the enduring global impact of A Chorus Line. In today's episode of Immortal Icons of Dance, we're here talking with Baayork Lee about her life in theater, her experiences with A Chorus Line, and specifically her work with Michael Bennett. So thank you for being here, Baayork.
I'm happy to be here. I'm passing it on.
You're passing it on, which is definitely the theme of this show.
Yeah.
So let's just start at the beginning. How did you get your start dancing, and when did you know that you wanted to have a career as a dancer?
Well, they were casting for The King and I with Yul Brynner, and casting agents came to Chinatown. My father had a restaurant there, and they went to all the schools, and we all went uptown to audition, show, and I got the job. 5 years old, I got the job.
What did the audition entail?
We just walked out there. I think it was Happy Birthday or something like that, But I was the smallest one, and they hired me, and I went on tour, out-of-town tryouts. I mean, this is all new to my family. But I knew when I walked into the theater, and I saw the chandeliers, and I saw the red velvet seats, and then I saw the dancers warming up. I just knew this is what I wanted to do, and I told my mother, this is what I want to do. At 5, I knew exactly what I wanted to do.
Wow.
And so they would be warming up, and I would say, ask my mother, what are they doing? Because they were doing all the stretches and doing their bars. We had the Martha Graham group, which was Yuriko, and then we had the Balanchines group, the Robbins group. And so they were all warming up, and what is she doing? What is she doing? And I got fired at 8 years old. I outgrew my costume, but I knew I wanted to dance. There were 3 of us that were let go. One wanted to be a piano artist, and another one wanted to be an actress, and I wanted to dance. And the R&H office asked us, and Jerome Robbins helped me get into the school. So I stayed for 12 years there. And that was the year.
You're saying the School of American Ballet?
Yes, SAB, yeah. And just whole new life for me.
Yeah. I heard that you began directing at 5 years old, backstage at the St. James.
Well, I don't know, maybe it was 6.
Okay.
But, they put us up on the 7th floor. We would make so much noise. And the catwalk was up there and on our floor. So we would roll it out and we watched the show. And after a while, I started directing. Now, you're going to be Mrs. Anna. You're going to be so-and-so. And we knew everybody's lines, and we put the show on upstairs.
What drew you to directing at that age?
I don't know if I knew I was directing. I was just putting on a show. Yeah, I didn't know I was directing. I was just saying, you do this, you do that. So.
The leadership qualities,
yes, it was
emerged early.
Very apparent.
Yeah. Could you tell me about the gift that Yul Brynner gave you when you left The King and I?
He gave me this beautiful pin with a white elephant, which is very sacred in Thailand. It was 3 sides. And he said, I want you to look to the right, to the left, and forward. Never look back. And so I've used that, for everything that I've done. I just put one foot in front of the other, get another job, never thinking about what I've done.
Do you still have that pin?
I still have the pin.
Yes.
I can't find it. It's somewhere.
It's there.
But I still use that because, we were called gypsies in those days. We went from show to show to show. And we just put we just wanted to work. We wanted to be on Broadway. We wanted to perform. So it wasn't, and also we had to have our director and choreographer in those days. So, I became a Michael Bennett dancer, but because I was not tall enough to be a fussy girl, I didn't tap, so I wasn't a Peter Gennaro dancer. So I decided if I wanted to be in the business that I would audition as a kid. And so I put my braids on and the dresses on, and I'd go and I audition, and I got all of my shows because I was a shoe shine boy, I was a grocery girl, but then the choreographers like Michael Kidd saw that I could dance, or Peter Gennaro saw I could dance. And then I was in more of the productions than the other kids. So it was exciting.
Could you talk more about, you've already named several choreographers, some more of the choreographic and directorial influences that you had as a child working in the theater? You got to be exposed to some of like the theater's greatest.
I think because I was in the show for 3 years, and I saw people come and go, and I saw, in different roles. I think I absorbed a lot that I didn't know I was getting, all of that information. And so I just wanted to be in the chorus. I just wanted to perform. But with every single choreographer, Michael Kidd had just come off of the film Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. And so, please.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
And Peter Gennaro was on television every Sunday on the Ed Sullivan Show. He was one of the dancers, and he had his dancers there. So I knew that he was tapping, and there were acrobatics and all of that, But because I had started SAB so young, I wanted to be in the company. And George Lee, he was the one that, did the Chinese
tea.
Yeah.
And the Nutcracker.
And so George Lee and I, were kind of, I didn't really know him because he was older than I was, but I thought, my dream is to be his partner.
Yeah.
And at that time, Arthur Mitchell and Louis Johnson were at the school, and a beautiful African-American girl, Barbara Wright, was there. And so they were pairing up and doing things. And I thought, George, when I grow up, it's going to be George and myself. Well, that didn't happen. We did do the Nutcracker. But later on, we met during Flower Drum Song, which is great.
So let's talk a little bit more about SAB. Who were some of the teachers that you had at SAB?
Muriel Stewart, Janet Reed, the Russians.
Did you have Thommie? Thommie?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah. The Russian teachers.
Dubrovska. Did you have Dubrovska?
Yes. Madame Dubrovska.
Who else? Abukov?
Abukov, definitely Abukov. She was so lovely. Was
Danilova?
Yes.
Yes. So you really had all. I mean, you were there for 12 years, so you really got to work with so many of them.
And when I got to the class, I was in class one day. See, I never grew, but I kept moving up, dancing as hard as I could. And I came out, and Arthur Mitchell was there, and I said, you know what? I don't think I belong here, and he said, oh, no, you just go back in, and because I realized that everybody had grown and I was not growing at all. So after that, the next class would be going into the company class, and I just knew that something wasn't right. And so I threw the pointe shoes away and put on, then it was musical theater.
Yeah. But you really got everything that you could out of that experience at SAB. You had gotten what you could, and it was time to move on.
And because I had that firm technique, I had a background, every choreographer that I worked with, I came in as a kid, and they could see that I had technique, and, I worked for all of the choreographers. It was great.
So what about Nutcracker? What roles did you dance?
I was a soldier. I understudied the bunny. I think at one point I understudied Paula Chanel,
Uh-huh.
but that was it. That's all the kids.
I also heard a story about Maria Tallchief.
Oh,
Please tell me the story.
okay, so she was an American Indian, and I'm half Asian Indian, and she was just my idol. And we would watch her dance, and I just, at that time, Capezio, when you went to get your shoes, you got the baseball cards of the ballerinas.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yes, they were this small, and you could get Janet Reed, you could get Tanaqua Leclerc, you could get the very, very small cards.
Uh-huh.
And so I would collect all of my ballerinas cards, and I heard that she wore 2 pairs of pointe shoes every night. So me and my girlfriend, we stayed upstairs, waited till everybody went down, and we went downstairs to the dressing room, and we took the pointe shoes out of the garbage. we slept with them. I don't know if they were, but she made such an impression on me.
Yes.
So when it came time to talk about our stories for a chorus line, of course I spoke about her and how I loved watching her, and she had a sister that was in Chicago, and
Marjorie.
they were just those sisters, Tallchief sisters.
Yeah.
So I was doing I had taken a chorus line to Chicago, and I was on a morning show promoting the performance that evening, and the anchor woman during this commercial, she said, "I just want to tell you that I'm Maria Tallchief's daughter's best friend.
Oh.
Would you like to go and see her?" I was, yes.
Yeah.
So she had a book signing in New York, and I had missed it, but I had her book, so I had somebody send me the book.
Mm-hmm.
And we finally got a date, and she was in this nursing home, and I was just so nervous. And she came downstairs, and I just fell to my knees, and gave her the book. No, I didn't give her the book. And I said, "Miss Tallchief, when I was little, I used to watch you all the time." And all of a sudden, she came alive because she had Alzheimer's.
Oh.
And when I started talking about the school, and I was talking so fast, watching her, Swan Lake and, Sugar Plum Fairy. I mean, it was just on and on. And she grabbed the book and she signed the book, and then she was gone.
Huh.
She just, exactly like that. And the nurse came on, she said, "It's okay." And they took her away.
Wow.
But she signed my book.
Yeah.
She came alive when I started talking about, I used to watch you dance. And I also told her that every place in the world, they say her name because of a chorus line. I was never going to be Maria Tallchief. Mm-hmm. And I said, all over the world, your name is being said every single night somewhere.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That story, it's giving me chills. And I love how excited it still makes you. And I feel like I'm also getting the chills because I can relate to that. I had Chita Rivera's book, and I went to her book signing, which was only less than a year before she passed. And same thing, I've never met someone and cried immediately, and I cried meeting her and getting to just shake her hand and thank her. And I treasure that book now that I had that signed.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes, those are moments that, nobody will understand except us.
Yeah.
Because they've made such a big impact on my life. Mm-hmm. Also, at that time, Yuriko was in the show, and I wanted to be like her when I was 5, And when I went on to get into Flower Drum Song, she was in the show, and she became a role model, another role model. So at the same time, I was at SAB. I was dancing with Yuriko. Mm-hmm. And I would just remember her, do you want to be taller? Well, just pull it up from the center and, the Martha Graham and all of that.
Yeah.
And she said, come to Graham. But I wanted to be a ballerina.
Mm-hmm.
And later on, when I went to Performing Arts High School, which is now LaGuardia, I took Graham classes. Mm-hmm. So all of that
came around.
Yeah.
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 Can you tell me the story about how you booked Flower Drum Song?
Ooh, well, I had heard that they were doing a show. All the kids are talking and the parents are talking. And I go in and they'd line us up and they eliminated me. Well, I came out crushed. And I said to my mother, this is my show. I've got to get in this show. And right then, Richard Rogers walked by. And I ran after him, Mr. Rogers, and he turned around, Baayork. And I got in, mm-hmm. and I got the show.
Mm-hmm. Because he had composed with the first, with The King and I.
With King and I, yeah.
So
and I have photographs of him talking to me because I was the only one that had the monologue at the end of the show. Mm-hmm. So I made an impression, I guess.
So you had extensive ballet training, I should say, at SAB. But you also trained over the summers. This is when you met Michael. Could
Bennett.
You tell me about those times?
Okay, so we lived in Chinatown, and there was a man who lived over us. His name was Claude Marchand, and he was a principal dancer with the Catherine Dunham Company. And he had said to my mother, you should take your daughter to our school. And so I finally went, and there was Michael Bennett. And we didn't know.
What age would you have been?
I guess I started there young. At the same time I was at SAB.
Oh, okay.
Michael came when I went into Flower Drum Song, so I was about 11.
Okay.
10 or 11. And he would come down in the summers. Mm-hmm. So I came, he tells the story, that I came back from my audition from Flower Drum Song, and I announced to everybody that I was going to be in my second Broadway show. He said, I could have killed you. And I said, yeah, but now you're my boss.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
He said, yeah, but then, he wanted to dance so badly. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. But there was nobody like Michael Bennett.
What was your first impression of him?
As a kid, there was none.
Okay.
We were just dancing. But when we got into our show that we were in together, he was one of the assistants to Michael Kidd and helped, him choreograph, or not choreograph, but he was an assistant. And but then when he came to me and he said, I'm going to start teaching class. And I had worked with Jaime Rogers. I don't know if you know the name, Jaime Rogers. He's in the movie West Side Story. He's one of the sharks with the bandana.
Okay.
And he and Michael Bennett would dance, and dance talk, dance competition. And one would do a step and the other one would, pick it up. And I mean, I'd never seen anything like that. There was also a man named Lenny Dale who was phenomenal. And the three of them would get together, and you'd never see anything like it. The improvisational side of it. And I thought, I could never do that because I'm so structured. The arm is here, everything is very centered. But they just took the music and ripped it apart. I just remember Lenny Dale having a full orchestra on the stage, and he just improvised. He just danced. And that's what Michael Bennett did. They just danced. They'd look in the mirror. And when I met Donna McKechnie, and she and Michael would do the same thing. And I would just say, how do you do it? Where do the steps come? And, after, 25 years with Michael Bennett and being his assistant, it's the music drives you, and whatever vocabulary you have just inspires you, and they just dance. There's no limitations, just dance. So I'm getting.
So in between, dancing with Michael in the summers, and then you also both attended performing arts high school together. Were there any formative performance moments that you had there, or it was just school?
I was in the ballet, and I think he was in the modern.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. At that time, they didn't have musical theater. There was no... Jose Greco came and gave us a flamenco class. We had folk dancing, but no musical theater.
Okay.
And so I believe he was in the modern group.
Okay.
Yeah. So we never really... Yeah.
And then what was the first professional job that you did with him?
It was called Here's Love. And it was the story of the miracle on 34th Street. And Michael Kidd, as I said, had just come off of Seven Brides, and it was phenomenal. And I came in as a kid, and he saw that I could dance, because I was always there with the adults. And he put me on point, and I did a piccolo solo on point with, not a solo, a duet with one of the adults. But we were about the same size, yeah.
When did you know that Michael had something exceptional to share with the world?
I think when we went to his classes, when he was teaching.
What were his classes like, even like the structure of them?
A warm-up, a combination of, several different warm-ups. But Michael had a drummer. He always had a drummer. And he started, Jaime Rogers, I think, moved out to California, and he kept his drummer, and he kept his classes. And that drummer, Bobby Thomas, with those drums, just inspired us all. It made all the classes, nothing compared to those classes with that drummer. And Michael is very loyal, and Bobby Thomas has done all of his shows. Yeah, either in the pit or rehearsals, Dream Girls. If you look up his name, Bobby Thomas. Michael would just come in. Bobby would be just warming up. Michael would just throw his coat off and start dancing. And we had been there, warming up, and he would just dance. I'd never seen anything like it. Just, I don't know where it came from.
You were mentioning that the Fosse dancers, the Gennaro dancers, the Robbins dancers, that they all had different qualities that kind of put them into those groups. What do you think defined or came to define a Bennett dancer?
Variety. Absolutely. He did everything. Also, every size and shape and different forms of dance, he used it in his productions. I think he was so much ahead of his time. What we did in Promises, Promises, the Turkey Lurkey dance, is so different from a chorus line, so different from Henry Sweet Henry when we were kids at private school. What other shows have I done with him? Oh, A Joyful Noise. We were mountain cloggers. He had variety. Whereas, Fosse, you see his style in every single thing that he's done. And Michael could change at a drop of a hat. He was a fantastic tap dancer. And Bob Avian, his choreographic partner, was a ballet dancer, and so Bob and I got together to do the ballet things, and Michael would tap. And so Graziella Danielle was the assistant. He had several assistants before me, fantastic dancing ladies. What's the girl's name? She played she played Gwen Verdon in the movie All That Jazz.
Picture the face.
Redhead.
Names not coming to me.
Short hair. Yeah. That was his first assistant.
Okay.
Leland Palmer.
There you go.
Leland Palmer was his first assistant. And then there was Charlene Mel, Bob Avian, Graciela Danielle. And when Grazie left to work with Alan Johnson, Bob came to me and said, I think it's going to be you. But I was always there. You know, that's just my personality. I would be there early every day, learning everything and writing everything down. And I said, you know, I didn't get this job because I was cute. I could write everything down, and I could, the next day he wouldn't remember what he did because he improvised. And I'd say, no, you did this and this and this and that, you know?
Yeah.
So I think I got the job because I could write everything down.
Yeah. What was it like being in the studio in rehearsals with Michael? Could you tell me about some of his idiosyncrasies or some phrases or habits that he had?
Well, you know, all of them smoked forever and ever and ever. He was just incredible. You know, it wasn't painful. I heard that Bob Fosse would, you know, it was painful to choreograph. It just flowed out of his fingernails and feet, and, you know, it was just there. And then he, the genius that he was, knew how to put it together, you know, or if Bob came up with something or Donna came up with something. The wonderful thing about him is that he allowed his assistants to speak and to be a part of the process. And a lot of choreographers don't allow that. You stand on the side and you wait until it all happens. Michael, it's about collaboration. It's always about collaboration.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful because he takes the best from the best.
Yeah.
You know? And you have a voice and you're respected.
Did Michael ever get to see choreography that you did outside, and did he ever have feedback?
No.
No, he didn't.
No, he didn't. And I'm sure he would have supported me and given me notes. And I would want them from him. But, you know, Chorus Line became a machine. And once we opened on Broadway, Michael immediately started an international company and a touring company. And we all rehearsed the same time. So we had 6 Cassies because you had 3 companies and then you had 3 covers. And so he would, and I would have to do the show at night, but we worked from 10 in the morning until 6, and then he would work from 7 until 11, getting these companies together. And he was just, it's like, oh my goodness. The international company went to London, and then I went to London with him to put that on, and then I went to Canada. I mean, it was just, and then I would come back and perform. And then he sent me off to Australia for the first time to do it by myself with the stage manager. It just happened, and the machine was just going and going and going and going and going. Yeah.
Did it always feel joyful, or were there hard moments in that process?
Teaching and being a part of it, always joyful. But, you know, they didn't have casting agents then, and they didn't have anybody to put the ads in the paper. And so the stage manager and I, we would get together and say, we need this character, or we're having auditions. Yeah, there were no casting agents.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I would start off in New York, and then I would fly to London, and I would take care of them. Then I would fly to Australia, to Sydney, and then I would go to a Los Angeles company. Then we had a company in San Francisco, and then that company went to Chicago. And then I would start all over again and clean the companies and, you know, do whatever. Do all the auditions. I would audition them and then teach them the show, and then I'd go to the next town. Yeah. So that's the joy. That was the joy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Over 50 years with this show that you've been either in it, staging it, teaching it, directing it, etc. How have you grown as an artist in relationship to this show?
Oof. When I created the role of Connie, she was that girl who needed a job and wanted to be Maria Tallchief. By the time we got to California, all of us, we were paid well. We were on television all the time. We were up for films and things. And so we changed. So we grew. And of course, everybody took their directions, and I stayed with taking care of the show as Michael gave me the baton. I had to learn how to direct the show in Swedish, in German, and Italian, in Korean, in Japanese. And I had to find my formula of how to relate, because there were no musical theater schools.
Yeah.
So I would insist that we have a 4-week period of just workshops, and to bring the singers who couldn't dance up, bring the actors who couldn't sing up, so that everybody would have a common denominator, and then we would teach the show. So I started doing that in all the countries. And England took off first. They started their musical theater schools. They have a lot of them. Australia already had musical theater schools, but they weren't as triple threat as we needed for this show. How have I grown? I have grown as a director, as a teacher. I think most of all as a teacher, because it's Michael's work that I am reproducing and giving you his information. But as a director, how do I relate to you as an individual playing this role? And there's 17, well, 19 really. There's 17 on the line, and everybody is different. And Michael spent a lot of time with me in California, just going through the lighting plot, going through the scenic changes, because he was getting me ready to send me out to do this work. And I don't know how he chose me, but I was the dance captain. I took all the notes. I had all the information, and but he chose me. And I'm grateful, forever grateful, because I still enjoy it. If I didn't enjoy it, I would be gone. I'd be swinging on a pole in thong doing Miss Saigon. What can I say? But because I love it, and I love the fact that his legacy has to live on. And Jessica and Chrissy Whitehead and all of these people, I teach them so that they can go out and teach it, so that it stays alive. And that's the only way. With ballet also, it's passed down. But I am so grateful that I could do it. That I could do it. I had to grow. I had to grow up as a choreographer and a director on the job.
Yeah.
And, I got off the plane with Fran Liebergold, my pianist, and Bernie Gersten, co-producer at Public Theater. We got off the plane in Sydney, Australia. Producer looked at he said, "You? I mean, here I am." She's just a little taller than I am. Are you two going to do it? Yes. Oh, we have to have, no. We know what we're doing.
Yeah.
We know what we're doing, because everybody across the board, they did not have open calls. Everybody was invited. You would send your photograph to the producers. They'd look at you. Yeah, you can come to the audition. You cannot come. Everywhere, London, everywhere. And we said, no, we're going to have an open call. A what? You've got to put an ad in the paper and anybody can come. And that was something new for all of Europe and Australia, everything new.
Wow.
And they do it now. Yeah, they do it now.
How do you manage the balance between the way it should be, right, and the legacy, and this is what the steps are, and this is the intention, versus adapting to different voices, bodies, technical equipment, theater spaces? How do you manage that balance?
Because I've been doing it for 50 years, I have a blueprint of, but not for the people. It's the actors that make the show. You have no show You can have scenery, you can have orchestrations, but it's the actors that make the show and the dancers. And so Michael, from the very beginning, said, you must take a long time to cast. And so that adjustment, I don't care how long it takes to get the right person. And how do you do that? You interview them, you dance them, you sing them. We have 17 roles, and so somebody's going to fit in there. You're going to fit. Girl who can't sing, we've got a part for you. The girl who hits the high note, we got a part for you. You know, the girl who's too short, yeah, we've got a part for you. African American boy. Michael was so ahead of his time. So I deal with people one-on-one, and it's hard. When I have an open call, first of all, there's the equity calls and all of that. And then there's those people who have lined up all morning waiting. And I make sure that I see every single person. I don't care if I'm there till 11 o'clock at night. Because that one person that happened in Australia, we were finished with the auditions. We could not find a Maggie. We could not find a couple of the roles. So we're going to go back and bring them from America. We've got our coats on. We're going down the stairs. This girl walks in, no shoes on. And she says, is the audition over? I said, yeah, you know. She says, I just heard about it. I was at the beach. You know, everybody's at the beach in Australia. And I just heard about it. And can I just... Yeah. So... You know, the piano guy, he's closed his piano, and I don't know, the bolts of lightning hit me, and I went, yeah, let's just hear her. So we took our coats off. This girl hit that note, sang like you would not believe, could not dance. And Bernie Gersten said, we are going to bring you to Los Angeles, and Baayork is going to train you. And then you're going to be the Maggie in the show.
Nice.
And I'm still in touch with her, by the way, Angela Ayres. But I did not know that she was a pop star in New Zealand.
Oh.
And she had heard about it on the beach.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I took that as an example. I see everybody to the end because that one person might be the one. And it's really important. For all those people who sign up for 6 o'clock in the morning and they're waiting, I'm so sorry, we're not seeing, you know, non-equities or something like that. And I always say, no, I have to see everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we appreciate that because also you were one of us, and you know it's like you started right there in the lines and the auditioning. I want to see everybody, and that one person, you know, or I might be able to help them to say, you know what? You really have to go to a pirouette class, or you don't have your pirouettes, or you've got to get to singing class, or the rehearsal pianist might say, you know, that song wasn't right for you. What about this song? We could help you. Yeah. Yeah. And I've had so many people come who are now on Broadway saying, you know, I came to an open call and you told me to wear lipstick. We've got to put on a face, because I say to them, you know, the producers are here. You better, ladies, you better put on some lipstick and some eyes. Things like that, you know. It just might be something small. But, you know, when you are new to the city, you're new to the business, you're fighting like everybody else, just to have one simple little word of encouragement will help you get through the day. Auditions don't have to be the auditionee is giving something. It can be an exchange, a back and forth. An audition can be a learning experience. It doesn't just have to be, we are taking your time or your talent and we are just sitting here.
Exactly. And, you know, that's why Michael wanted to do this show. He wanted to do this show for dancers and actors who are just have numbers, you know, and that's why he says, okay, tell me about yourself. Speak? We're allowed to speak?
Yeah.
You know, we don't know what's going on here. He says, yeah, I want you to tell me where you were born and when. And, you know, that was so foreign. So that's why a chorus line, it resonates now because it's about the people and the respect for the people, the respect for the dancers and the actors, because then you were just a number, number 44, number 5 to 5. Okay, everybody, thank you very much. And let's get your number. We might be calling you. Thank you very much. Somebody will call you. There was no personal. And I think that's why Fosse's had his dancers and everybody had their dancers, because they were called cattle calls.
Yeah.
That's what they were called, cattle calls. And you were treated like that.
So in a chorus line, each dancer, they've got either a monologue or a song that goes into their character's backstory. I'm curious how that translates into other languages, because it would be hard for it to just be a verbatim translation when some of the cultural references, how does that work in translations?
Like in German, there's High German and Low German. So we decided to work with Michael Kunze, who's a very famous writer there. And he would say, tell me about the Bronx. And so she would speak in a Low German accent, or Sheila from Colorado Springs, Colorado, she has more of a higher kind of German, or somebody else has a dialect. I just work with the translators, and the writers.
And so when they're talking about the Bronx, they're still saying the Bronx, it's still set in New York, but just in,
the most important thing is that Michael tried in London to say, I'm from Sussex, or I'm from Essex, I'm from da-da-da-da-da. And he tried it in a workshop or whatever, and he came to the conclusion that he wanted audiences to see what we do in New York on Broadway. And we needed to translate that. So when you walk in and you hear it in your language, but you have had a transition to Broadway. And that's the important thing. And everybody we were the first, because even Robbins, they would take his choreography and do whatever. But Michael Bennett said, if you're going to do my show, you're going to have the costumes, you're going to have the set, you're going to have the dialogue, and you're going to have the staging, everything exactly like Broadway, which means
out of all the productions that you've been a part of, is there one, it doesn't have to be a favorite or a best, but is there one chorus line experience that kind of stands out in your memory above the rest?
City Center was just incredible.
That was the first time I saw a chorus line live. Yeah.
That company, and it was because it was only 10 days of performing, and we got everybody who was on Broadway. Thommie Bracco was doing something, and Max was in something, and Ryan Steele. I mean, they were all on Broadway doing. Jolena was in Phantom of the Opera. On and on and on. I mean, we would never get a cast like that again.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you saw that.
I did. Yeah, when the City Center one came up, that was my first time seeing it.
Robin Herder.
Yeah.
Oh. She is a warhorse. I mean, she is just incredible. Tony Yazbak.
Yeah.
Oh, he was our Al. And so when I started working with Zach, he says, Baayork, I'm ready for it now. I'm ready for it. Yeah. Because he had, some notoriety.
Yeah.
And
what are some of the, what's it been like with some of the different Cassies? Again, not asking a best or a favorite, but maybe what makes some of them unique?
Jessica. She had learned the role. She had learned the Cassies when she was 10 or whatever, the Cassie role. She came in as a Val, and then Charlotte could not do the last week because her brother was getting married.
You talk about the 2006 revival.
Yeah. And Bob said, give her a chance. And she, for 1 week, she tore it up. She just tore it up. Sarah Bowden, who I discovered her in Austria, and she speaks fluent German. She's a big star in Berlin. And I could not get anybody for Hollywood Bowl at the time. People weren't in shape. I mean, you got to be in shape. And I needed somebody immediately. And they said, I'm not in shape. It's okay. It's okay. And we got her in to the country. Gosh. And she gets to do 4 pirouettes at the end. She does 2, 2, 3, 4.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. These Cassies are powerhouses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are war horses.
So watching Michael and working with him through several shows, how did his craft change? How did you see his style develop? And how did you see the success of a chorus line change or not change him?
As I said, Michael, every show is different. And so his style, because he started working with Hal Prince and Stephen Sondheim, he started leaning more towards storytelling, more than before, which is a good thing, because he wanted to be director. And we could see that. He would really come in and just, anybody can do those steps, he said, but let's talk about the book. The book. So in that sense, he had changed because he wanted to be a director. And you know, nobody wants to be a producer, but in order to get your work done the way you want it and you don't want the pressure, you have to become a producer. And so that was the next step for him. He also was a businessman. He bought a building, 890 Broadway, and it was, he had a black box. It was a tennis court downstairs, and he made a black box, and he gave one floor to the milliner who made the hats, the costume designer, Robin Wagner, and Theone Aldridge. And it was Barbara Materas. They had one floor, so everything was done, and Jacob made the shoes. And then he had rehearsal studios, and those rehearsal studios were designed for shows to go in there, because he had, first of all, he had a wonderful green room, and he had lockers for everybody, but attached to those rooms were small studios for stage managers. So the stage managers had a place to work, because usually they're in the corner trying to do whatever.
Yeah.
But they had a place to work. So every studio had a place for stage managers. Then there was on each floor there was a green room, and he had mirrors that were all Mylar.
Oh.
The ones that we used in the show. And so they weren't glass against the wall. So he could move them from room to room. And shows rehearsed there. On the top floor is Elliot Phelps. And then I think ABT came in and took over some of those studios. Yeah.
And then Gibney also has a floor there as well now. Yeah.
But that was Michael Bennett's dream. So how did he change? He changed a lot. And money does that for you. You can afford to do what you dream.
Did you ever have a disagreement with Michael, and how did it resolve?
I was so lucky that he gave me carte blanche. He never came in and said, what are you doing over there? Or, what are you doing in Austria? What are you doing? Whatever. Never, never, never. Because he said, Baayork, I want you to do this because he didn't like to fly. He didn't want to go to Australia. He didn't want to go to Japan. Because he wanted to move on. And somebody had to take care of a chorus line. And so he was working on different shows and movies, and he went to Hollywood, to work on films. So
that's good.
He just let me do, and he knew that I was going to do the right thing.
He trusted you.
Yeah.
Well, it's good that he was forward thinking in that way. Because Balanchine, he said, oh, once I'm gone, my ballets are gone. He didn't think that, they would, live on. And so he didn't necessarily set up a system for them to be continued on. Mm-hmm. They did that after he passed. So it's good that Michael gave you the keys early on and was able to help guide that.
And there was Bob Avian, mm-hmm. who really was my sidekick, my mentor. And he was the, Michael was the genius and had all these wonderful ideas. And Bob was the one that had his 2 feet on the ground. And he said, Baayork, Michael would go to London and he would dance and dance and dance and he'd change everything. And the dance captain would call me and say, well, we've changed this and that and the other. And I'd call Bob, what are we going to do? Because he wants to take that person to this company and now it's different. And he said, let him dance. And then we go back to where it was supposed to be. And that's what we did. Mm-hmm. We just let him dance.
Yeah.
And then we tell the dance captain, okay, that's fine. But we have to standardize this because Michael was sending different people to different companies. And we had so many companies and they needed to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We had a dance captain convention. I said, well, we need a dance captain. So all the dance captains got together on the Schubert stage, and I said, Michael, this is what it is, okay? And we're going to do this all over the world.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Do you have any funny memories with Michael?
Well, Priscilla Lopez used to come down and make us all laugh, and he just loved her. And he would just sit in the dressing rooms and have Priscilla tell us stories. Mm-hmm. And I use that image of Zach and the character Morales, when he says, talk about yourself. And, he's trying to get her to tell the funny stories and she doesn't get it. Uh-huh. But Michael, that was the fun times with him, mm-hmm. When he was still a dancer and he wasn't dancing, he was choreographing, but he wanted to be close to us. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What was the greatest compliment Michael ever gave you?
Ooh. I think he's complimenting me now. I think that's all I need to know is that he knows that I've kept this going.
Yeah.
And that I talk about him every day.
Yeah.
I mean, he's every day. He's not forgotten at all.
No. What was something that you wish people knew about Michael, either a misconception about him that you'd like to set straight or just something that people don't get to learn because of his short time on Earth?
Michael loved the theater and he loved being in rehearsals in that black box. And Michael, when he was talking to you, he was talking to you. And when he, you always felt as though you were, when he passed away at his memorial, the Cassies, Michael said that I was the best Cassie, or Michael said that my Sheila was just his favorite, mm-hmm. And he just knew how to embrace the dancers and give them what they needed. Mm-hmm. I think that's the best part of him, that he just knew how to deal with every single person and the designers, and people want to work with him. Everybody wanted to work with him. Mm-hmm. Some people had bad experiences, but in the end, when you look back, they worked with Michael Bennett. Mm-hmm. They worked with Michael Bennett, or they worked with Fosse, or they worked with Robbins. He was a terror. He was a terror. They all were, because that was the era of all of that. I mean, it wouldn't happen now, but to be working with geniuses, we all knew that Michael said, listen, we all said it. We're in this workshop. We don't know what it is. We were on unemployment. And we're only getting, what, $50? But if nothing becomes of this, we have really grown as a group. We have all bonded. We're still friends. And our stories would be in a drawer somewhere. And he pulled it out, and he's 50 years later, we're still talking about it.
Yeah. Your stories all have been told over and over for 50 years, but it's also given a voice to how many hundreds of other dancers who get to tell their story through your words and your stories.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I have a company for Asian artists called National Asian Artist Project. And for our 50th anniversary, I'm giving a gala, and I am honoring the character Connie Wong.
Good.
So I have called all of the Connie Wongs that I know. So there's about 20 of them, and we'll be honoring them.
Wow, that's going to be special. One last question. If someone were to go watch one other bit of footage from another piece of his work, what do you think that they should watch?
Well, I think it's Promises, Promises. That Turkey Lurkey number, how he builds it, and all of the what he had us doing. We changed the set, and I think that was the first time people had seen that we danced the set on, I choreographed it on. Here comes another set piece, and we were in the lobby dancing, or the way he staged the show, I think was incredible, because he was he knew how to stage a show, and he knew how to build a number. But there's so many things. We did a television show with Hermes Hermit. Have you ever heard of Hermes Hermit?
No.
He was a rock star, and he played Pinocchio, and Michael had us with elastics, and we danced. We do changements, and they would pull us up. I mean, he had just so many different things that they would their elastics were our feet and our hands. His ideas, he was brilliant. It depended on the show. And how can you see these things? I don't know. Dream Girls, Dream Girls also. I don't know if you can see any of that.
Well, I'll do some hunting and searching on YouTube, and I'll see what's available. I'll make a playlist for listeners to be able to go watch and do their own research and see some more of Michael's work.
Yeah. We had the 1983, when we took over the longest running show from Greece. And I just saw it at Lincoln Center again. And that's when he had like 350 people, 500 people on the stage and in the aisles and all that. Have you seen that?
I have. I originally read about it in the book. And anytime I read anything about it or hear about it, I just get chills and tears come to my eye, because I just place myself in my imagination like on the stage or in the aisles, and just I remember reading about like the energy between the dancers in the balcony and on the stage, and I can feel it. And I always say, if I could time travel, the first place that I would want to go would to be at that gala performance.
Wow.
That, and then being in the audience watching Patricia McBride and Edward Villela dance together. Ooh. Those are like the two first things that I go, if I could have been somewhere else, that's where I would have wanted to go. It means a lot to me to have you here today.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you for sharing your stories.
Thank you. Sometimes I think I don't have that much to say.
And here we are, an hour and 20 minutes later.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me. I hope this it gets out there that this show has lasted this long because it's your show. And when I open a show, I say to the company, it's your show now. Michael created the show for you. We created the show for you. And so go and, carry on the legacy. So just by my talking, I'm hoping that people understand that this show was created for you all.